Welcome to Shadowkeepers, where the veil between this world and the next is always paper thin. I'm Lee.
And I'm B. Every week, we dive deep into the darkest mysteries, haunted places, cursed objects, and true paranormal encounters that history tried to bury.
Tonight, we're opening the creaking door on one of the most chilling unsolved crimes in American history, a house stained by murder, silence, and something that still lingers over a century later.
8 people were murdered in their beds, and no one was ever brought to justice. But some say the house still remembers. Some say it won't let you forget.
This is the story of the Villisca axe murders and the restless spirits that may still haunt 508 East 2nd Street.
So turn off the lights, lock the doors, and listen closely. You're listening to Shadowkeepers. What if I told you that one of the most brutal unsolved murders in American history happened in a quiet little town where no one saw a thing and no one said a word? On the night of June 9th, 1912, in a small town of Villisca, Iowa, 8 people were murdered inside a modest white house, all of them bludgeoned to death with an axe. This is the case of the Villisca axe murders, one of the most brutal and still unsolved crimes in American history. The victims? Josiah B. Moore, his wife Sarah, and their 4 children. Herman 11, Catherine 10, Boyd 7, Paul 5. And 2 additional victims, Lena Stillinger 12 and Ina Stillinger 8. They were staying the night after attending a children's church event with the Moore family. On the morning of June 10th, a neighbor, Mary Peckin, noticed that the house was quiet. Josiah Moore hadn't gone to work, and there was no sign of the family. She called Josiah's brother, who used the key to enter the home. What he found was horrific. Every person in the house had been bludgeoned to death, most likely while they were asleep. Each victim had several head traumas. The weapon was Josiah's own axe, found in the guest room.
It almost sounds like the New Orleans axe murders, except some of the details don't match. So,
I think the New Orleans axe murder was like maybe 20 years later. But yeah,
but
the
you
fact that he
said from
used his own axe.
yeah, but like you said, from that, axes were like everyone had
Common.
one. Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Well,
that was
because
the
back
weapon of
then
choice.
you used firewood to warm your house. So
Hmm.
you would need an axe to cut your own firewood. All curtains were drawn and the mirrors covered with cloth. All victims were found in their beds, except Lena, whose body appeared to have been repositioned. A piece of bacon wrapped in cloth was found near the axe. A kerosene lamp with the chimney removed was left at the foot of Josiah and Sarah's bed. A similar lamp was found in the guest room. There were no signs of forced entry, and all doors were locked from the inside. Investigators believe the killer had waited in the attic until the family went to bed. Footprints and depressions in the attic dust support this. Here is the timeline. 6 p.m., June 9th, the Moore family and the Stingler girls attend a church function. 9:30 to 10, they walk home and go to bed. After midnight, investigators believe the killer emerged, systematically murdered all 8 victims using a blunt end of an axe. Around 7:30 a.m. on June 10th, Mary Peckman noticed the family's absence and alerted the Moore's relatives. All victims died from massive head trauma. Dr. Lindquist, the coroner, estimated time of death to be between midnight and 5 a.m. That's a big time. I need you to be a little more specific.
But, they didn't really have the technology we have now.
Yeah. I'm wondering if they were able to, like, body temperature.
Mhm.
I don't know when thermometers were created. I don't know if they knew how to check, like, the liver temp to determine, like, how your body temperature drops, I think how many degrees each hour, but
I
Lena.
think if they had the temperature the technology we had now, a lot of unsolved crimes would have been solved, like this one.
I know, but the thing is they always say, like, it's so expensive to, like, rerun these things, and whoever did this crime, this was in 1912, they probably no, they would not be alive today. I don't wanna say
Oh, yeah,
probably,
of
they
course
would not
not.
be alive today.
They got their punishment in the next life.
If I was rich, like, massively with a lot of money, with this interest, I would be like, "Can I retest these? Because I just really wanna know." 1. But 2, it being 1912, they probably didn't protect the evidence in a way where it wouldn't degrade over time, like how evidence is protected today. So I feel like there would be nothing to test anyway. Lena Stillinger had defensive wounds, and her nightgown was pushed up, suggesting possible sexual motive, although no evidence of assault was found.
But they didn't have rape kits back then.
Yeah, they didn't, but she was 12, so they would have been able to tell if she was assaulted, I think. The axe marks on the ceilings indicate the killer raised the weapon so high it left gouges in the plaster. I wonder if he was tall, and that's why.
Or the size of the axe itself.
I would think it'd have been a standard side axe, but if he was tall when he swung, if he was a tall person and he swung it, I could see it hitting the ceiling
But also
because you would
remember,
still
like
need a good grip to
but
double
back
lift
then, the
it.
houses were small,
We're shorter?
like shorter, yeah. It's not like the houses now, how you have very high ceilings and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So especially if it's a little farmhouse, I think it would
Yeah.
be like
A
shorter.
little farmhouse, but they were fitting 8 people in there.
But, they all slept on the floors and shit, like, I mean,
You make it seem like this is not the 17 like, it's 1912, okay?
I understand, but it's a little farmhouse, and
Like,
they weren't rich.
we literally saw a house yesterday, beautiful, oh my god, so freaking beautiful, and it had a plaque that said, like, 1908
Mhm.
was when it was built. It was massive.
Someone with money.
Massive, and I was like, "Damn." Actually, all the houses in the neighborhood were massive,
Mhm.
and Tony was like, "Oh, I would like one of these houses." I'm like, "By yourself?" And the baby was like, "Yeah, I would like one of these houses." I'm like, "Who's cleaning this house?"
Exactly. I
Because
would like one of
unless
those houses with a cleaning woman.
yes. I'm like, "Unless we're all cleaning, we don't need a big house like that." Is it beautiful? Yes. Would I like to visit somebody who lives there? Absolutely. Do I want it myself? No.
Yeah, I shouldn't say cleaning woman, I should say a housekeeper.
Yeah, unless we're not using every single one of these rooms.
Yeah. Yeah, but you're still gonna get covered with
Yeah,
dust
get
and shit.
dusty. Yeah. I'm like, "No, yeah, everybody wants a big house till they gotta clean it." During the investigation, over 100 suspects were interviewed. Here are 3 of the most notable. Frank F. Jones, a wealthy local businessman. Josiah Moore had previously worked for him, but left to start a rival company. Rumors that Moore had an affair with Jones's daughter-in-law. Theory is Jones hired someone to kill Moore. William Blackie Mansfield, a suspect serial killer who murdered his wife, infant child, and in laws 2 years later. His crimes had similar methods an axe, covered mirrors, locked house. Was arrested but had an alibi for the Villisca night. Reverend George Kelly, a traveling preacher who attended the church event the night of the murders known to be mentally unstable, confessed during an intense interrogation, then recanted. But he went to trial in 1917, a hung jury, then acquitted in a second trial.
I've
There,
read about him that he was a creep, that he liked the little girls,
the thing is, like with back
young women.
then, a lot of traveling preachers weren't actual preachers. They're like con artists that
Mhm.
would use that as a way to gain people's trust because it's not like there was a way to prove whether or not someone was a preacher or not. There were several theories back then. Religious motive. Some believe the killer had a religious fixation, mirrors covered, bodies posed. A sexual motive. Lena's wounds and position raised questions. Was it a serial killer? Similar axe murders occurred across the Midwest between 1911 and 1912. Or was it an inside job? Someone from the town with knowledge of the family's habits. The Basilica Axe Murder House still stands and is now a tourist attraction. It has become a hotspot for paranormal investigations. Reports include disembodied voices, apparitions, cold spots, and objects moving, but no hard evidence has ever confirmed these claims. The case remains unsolved. Over 110 years later, there are no charges, no clear motive, and no justice for the victims. 8 lives were ended in a single night. A killer walked away and was never caught. And that's it. Wait, I think I was gonna say, oh, it being a tourist. You know what's weird? I would like to visit haunted places, more like maybe the battlefield or when we go to the prison. But I don't know. It feels weird going to a family home where people were murdered and experiencing that type of haunted house. Like if we lived there, okay, because we live there. But to actually like go out of my way and go to this family house where 8 people died, 6 of them being children. It feels wrong. I don't know why. Like, it's not a mass thing like everything else is. I don't know. Probably doesn't make any sense, but it's just like I can't see myself going to a house that like I know people go to the what's her name? It's not Lindsay Borden. What's her name? Who killed her dad and stepmom or whatever with an axe?
Lizzie?
Lizzie Borden. I don't know if I would wanna go to her
That's
where
because that's more intimate when the murders happen in a house than on a battlefield.
yeah,
And a battlefield, I mean, soldiers kinda sign up for that. They know what might happen where you have these innocent people just sleeping thinking they're gonna have
yeah,
a day the next day, and then it never happens because 'cause they're
and
murdered in their sleep.
I'm wondering if it being over 100 years ago, people are removing themselves from the fact that a family was killed there because I couldn't see myself or I doubt they would see themselves going to a house of a family that died 10 years ago because that would be too gruesome.
Mhm.
But because this happened in 1910, it's like, well, that's I wasn't alive, my parents weren't alive, so this is, like, so far removed from me that I can view it from a different eye, where I still see it as there was a family that lived there and their children died,
Mhm.
and I can't like, it being a place where people go to explore, I don't know, kinda freaks me out.
Yeah, but then if there are spirits there, which most likely it is, they might want people to know their story or they might not want it. I don't know how spirits feel, but
I get what you're saying. Like, I do see maybe they wanna be heard, maybe if they do want to, but
Mhm.
also making it a tourist spot doesn't seem right.
Yeah, or maybe that's the way they can keep that house
True,
alive, you know,
it's paying for the house's taxes, the
and
land rights, everything.
repairs and all
Yeah.
that stuff. Otherwise, it's just gonna sit there abandoned and just fall apart.
Yeah, unless they tore it down.
So here's what goes down in the cursed little farmhouse in Iowa. Children's voices. Not just one or two, a chorus. Visitors and investigators report full on whispers, giggles, even crying. And get this, some EVPs have captured a little girl saying mama. Now tell me why that makes my spine feel like it's got frostbite. Apparitions, y'all. Shadowy figures, full on ghostly forms, some tall and lurking, others small and fleeting. People have seen what look like kids peeking from behind corners. There's even a pitch black figure that hangs around the attic. The same attic the killer may have hidden, just waiting. And then there's the physical stuff. Folks have been scratched, hair pulled. People say they wake up at 3 a.m., unable to move, with something sitting on their chest. One woman said it felt like a cold hand went through her back, through it. Some even report sudden rage or deep sorrow for no reason. Just standing there, crying, angry, possibly possessed, maybe. And let's not forget the tech. Phones die instantly, batteries drain, flashlights that worked 5 minutes ago, done. Paranormal investigators bring gear that just fries, like the house refuses to be exposed. Now, the investigations. This place is basically a rite of passage for ghost hunters. Ghost adventurers roll through, and Zach Bagans was literally talking about demonic possessions by the time they left. They caught EVP saying, I killed 6 kids. Whether you believe it or not, that's a vibe killer. Paranormal Lockdown did 72 hours inside, and by hour 12, they were unraveling. Katrina felt like her mind was unraveling, like the house was chewing on her sanity, which, let's be real, is what this house does. It doesn't just scare you, it wears you down. BuzzFeed Unsolved even showed up. Now, Shane is the biggest skeptic in the game, and even he started getting nervous. And when Shane gets quiet, you know something ain't right. And this next part, it's not from a show, it's from real life. In 2014, a paranormal investigator staying overnight stabbed himself in the chest, alone, in the house. He survived, but he never gave a real reason, just that something took over. So, what's going on here? Some say the spirits of the Moore family and those sweet Stillinger girls are still trapped. Others think the killer's soul never left, that he's hiding in the attic, still watching. And then there's a darker theory that the house isn't haunted by ghosts, it's haunted by trauma, that the violence soaked into the walls and created something new, something hungry. It doesn't want to scare you, it wants to consume you mentally, emotionally, spiritually. People go in and leave with something missing, a fog they can't shake, a nightmare that follows. The Villisca house doesn't scream, it whispers. And it whispers to the parts of you that are already cracked. And that's why it's called the house that eats people. Maybe it's not the ghost doing the damage. Maybe it's the psychic imprint of terror. The residue of trauma soaked into every beam, floorboard, and nail, like spiritual black mold. You enter looking for answers, thrills, maybe a piece of the past, but you leave with something missing, a piece of your soul, gnawed off in the night. Maybe that's why the killer was never caught, because the house isn't just where it happened. It's a conduit, a container, a parasite. You don't leave the Villisca house alone. You carry it with you, in your dreams, in your thoughts, in the dark corners of your mind that no longer feel safe. Because maybe, just maybe, it's still hungry. And then I was watching some things on YouTube about it. They
Mm.
showed the actual house and some paranormal investigations going. So there's a man there that's been investigating that house for 20 years. I think he probably, like, takes, like, paranormal investigators kinda there, and he knows the whole history, so he kinda is able to talk to them about, the house and what has happened and this and that. So if you go in the house and you go into that room, I think where Josiah was killed, you do see that, the axe hit the ceiling and,
Mhm.
like, right behind it, it's cracked. And then they did this, how, when there's a crime scene and they use that, glow in the dark, solution to see if
Mhm.
there's blood. They
Luminol?
did that in Lumino, they did it in the house, and the guy said that it was like the whole house glowed. Like, he is a big horror fan and everything, but
What?
he couldn't even take going into the kids' rooms because it was so much blood in that room. It was so much blood that it seeped into the floorboards and actually was dripping down on the first floor. Like, he's like, "It's one thing to watch a horror movie on TV and you see the blood and gore, but to actually be in a room and then realize exactly what happened, that was too much for him." Like, he's like, "I don't even wanna see the kids' room, like, I can't." But, like, those stains are still there.
I had to look up if luminol can even detect blood that's over 100 years old because I was thinking, like, how could you? I feel like that would be an exaggeration because it's over 100 years old. But no, it can. It can detect blood 100 years old or older.
Yeah, it's the iron in the blood that it's detecting.
Um, I I didn't realize you could stay at the house because it's a sort of a bed and breakfast, though I don't think they actually offer breakfast.
No, I don't think the beds are all set up, the rooms are set up,
Yes.
but I don't think it's a breakfast.
It is listed as a
Mhm.
bed and breakfast, and each room is $200 a night. You
Unless somebody brings you in breakfast or gives you a voucher.
Yeah. So each room is $200 a night, or you can rent the whole house for a night for 600 to stay in the bedrooms.
Yeah, that's why that guy did, and he stabbed himself.
And I guess it's like a 3-bedroom house.
Yeah.
But again, because we weren't sure, they did not have electricity, they didn't have plumbing. But that would make more sense on why he had an axe because they probably had fireplaces,
Mhm.
so they would use that for heating, especially since there was no electricity.
The house is open to overnight stays. Plenty of folks leave in the middle of the night. Some common guest experience include waking up at 3 a.m., hearing footsteps above them, crying sounds from the attic, feeling watched from the corners of the room, nightmares for weeks after their stay, emotional breakdowns, people crying out of nowhere or feeling rage for no reason.
But I'm wondering, is that true? Or, like I said,
Like your mind that brings it on?
because I think also, like I was saying before, I think once you're there, your mind starts processing the fact that a real family lived here
Mhm.
and died. Where when you're thinking about it or you're doing a tour, you're a little removed. But if you're putting yourself in this experience,
Yeah,
I think you start processing the fact that, wait a minute, there were real children in this house and someone actually
yeah.
killed them. That's not saying it's not haunted. That was such a traumatic event with so many people. I think that house is stained and it's remembering. But I also feel like our brain is processing a trauma that happened there. And you don't know how you're going to process a trauma until you're in that experience.
Well, when I visited Jenny Wade's house in Gettysburg, and we were doing, like, the 1st floor, everything that's happened there. Well, as soon as we went to the 2nd floor, that's when I got physically sick.
Mhm.
I got really nauseous, I got lightheaded, I felt like I was literally gonna puke just standing on the 2nd floor, landing, and it didn't leave me until I left the property and walked back to my car,
I
and
even
then it was
view
gone instantly.
I even view that a little differently because that also was during a time of war and it was an accident. Like, I was a true accident that should have never happened.
Mhm,
Where this was such an intentional, vicious crime
mhm.
that I could see you going to that and it's just like, wow, this happened. This was so sad. It happened to this lady during a time of war where it shouldn't have happened. Where this shouldn't have happened either. But someone so evil coming to this home and just killing all these people, killing the children. I thought 2 children that had nothing to do with this family.
Wrong place, wrong time.
I feel like the intent of the person doing the crime also leaves a mark on a home,
Mhm.
I think is what I mean. Where you went again, that was an accident, a stray bullet that went through and killed her.
Yeah, but I wasn't thinking about it when I felt sick and
Yeah.
stuff, it just came on itself. It's not like I thought, "Oh,
Oh,
poor her. Oh,
yeah.
they shouldn't have." I wasn't I was just listening to the tour guide's story about, the events processing, like, what happened, and then I just started to feel sick
Were you the only
without
one?
I was the only one that felt sick because nobody else said anything.
Got it.
I didn't say anything to the group, but I did tell my friend that I was with, like, "Oh my god, I felt so sick, when we got to the car," and now it just completely disappeared. But she didn't feel sick,
Mhm.
and it didn't seem like anybody else in the group felt sick because they were all, like, more fascinated, and I was just like, "Oh my god, I gotta get out of here, I'm gonna puke." But I knew it was the house, I knew it wasn't me,
Yeah.
personally. That's why I pushed through it, and I didn't just run out and leave.
I always say, like, I want us to do some like, we went to the prison, I would like to see another prison. There's a sanitarium that's kinda close, or even, like, the Appalachian Trail is really close to me, that I would like to do some spot checking there.
But
Sense.
even if you're, like, in any kind of haunted area, I think you have a chance of taking something with you, whether
Yeah,
it's emotionally or in spirit form or
yeah.
something, like, you know what I mean? Because it's just the vibrations of the house.
No, and I understand that too, that's why they say, like, when you do that, you should tell whatever is there to, like, "Please stay here, please don't follow
Yeah.
me."
Yeah, because when we did our Gettysburg tours, we were saying that they would make us say, "I came here alone, I'm leaving alone, and you're not welcome to come with me. So
Yeah,
you don't take anything with you, because if you don't say it, they might follow you."
like, "Step off, bitch."
Yeah. There's a book, I think it's called The Man on a Train, and it's a father-daughter investigation, like, true crime, investigation book, and they think that they know who killed the person. It was this guy from Austria, and, he was just jumping on trains, jumping off, and, just finding work, but at the same time, everywhere that he's gone, murders has happened exactly the same way, with the mirrors covered,
Mm,
with, an axe. He's very experienced with an axe because he's a
mhm.
lumberjack guy,
Well, that's his
Um,
profession. Yeah.
yeah, so they think that they know who it was, and all of these murders that has happened, including the Villisca house, I think it was close by train tracks.
Yeah, so it would make sense that they would assume it would be a someone who's transient, but that's
Mhm,
like even when we were doing the axe murders of New Orleans, when I was doing the research for that episode, I noticed a lot of axe murders were happening around that time, but not like within that same like those same months, but
mhm,
basically like from 1910 to like
mhm.
1915, and that made me think, could this be the same person doing it? Or is it because since each home owns an axe, it's more of a weapon of convenience?
Yeah, and they took the murders all the way back of when, like, the first one happened, maybe it
Mhm.
was, like, 1906 or 1908, until it got to Iowa, which was, like, the 1910 or 1912, and then from there, there's even more continuing across,
Yeah.
across so many states, and some of these states or these, like, little towns, they even though it could be a possibility that somebody just came, killed somebody, jumped on a train, and left, they
Yeah.
didn't want to acknowledge that because it had to be somebody here because we have to close this case and find who the murderer is. So there's a lot of people that were innocent that didn't do anything and that were charged for crimes or lynched or, executed just
It's
so they could find a killer and say, "Oh, we found who did it, it's over."
I don't know if it's that. I think it's more a lot of people, because I've heard this before. A lot of people feel like no one will kill for no reason. I think a lot of people think that if you're going to kill somebody, you have a specific reason. And if they have a reason, it's not going to be a stranger.
Yeah, and then it's really hard for people to think you're gonna kill children for no reason.
Yeah. And
Like,
there's,
if you have a dispute with somebody, it's the adults that are in
yeah,
between it, they hurt each other, but usually people don't kill children.
taking it so far.
Yeah, and then, these cops, these police officers, there's a lot of pressure on them from the town, from the people. "Find who it is. Find, find, find." So they find, like, the closest person to the family or somebody that they had a dispute with maybe, like, weeks ago or something. "Oh, you did it," you know? They don't wanna
Mhm.
hear, like, their story, so they just find somebody because of pressure and then just punish them just so everybody can be happy
Which
and
was the
feel safe.
same, which was the same for the axe murder in New Orleans.
Mhm,
But also, I think too, one, there was no database, but also think I don't know if back then I would have thought of somebody being or it being somebody who is transient,
mhm,
who's jumping on and off of train tracks. But that was funny because when we were looking for a new home a few years ago, I was that was the one thing I looked at was how close to train tracks were we?
mhm.
And I was like, "'Cause that's a no for me." And Tony was like, "Why?" I was like, "Because I've heard too many stories of transients, and they're still transients today, that jump on and off trains, and they usually hit the first home like, the closest homes to the train tracks because they tend to just jump back onto whatever train car is coming by next." And I don't want that, and they say if you go to the train tracks and you see, like, symbols, those symbols mean specific things to other transients. It's like their own language.
Mhm. I mean, I lived by train tracks my whole life except for this house that I'm in now. I mean, when I lived by myself, it was right where the train would stop,
See, I
and
lived
I lived
near
across the street from it.
I lived near sep like Amtrak. There's a difference because,
Yeah,
like, if
SEPTA, yeah.
yeah, that's different from long hauling train
Oh,
tracks,
mm-mm.
which is the ones where you hear the horns at night. That's where the street actually closes because it's going by.
Yeah, yeah,
That's the train I'm talking about,
yeah.
which
'Cause they go slow so people can jump on and off in
on
the
and
back.
off.
Yeah.
It's not ones that stop at stations.
Mhm.
Like,
Yeah.
that's a different type yeah, we live near the L.
Mhm.
That's the train right there. But and here, actually, if I do go to, like, the main street and turn,
Mhm.
I do see the train tracks, and I was like and we were looking at a house that was over there a little bit, and I was like, I think this is a no for me."
Well, on those train tracks where I lived, when I lived by myself, we would get a cargo train that would come in the middle of the night. I wouldn't say like 2, 3 o'clock in the morning, and
Mhm.
you would hear it because they would blow the horn and everything, but I was
Yeah.
so used to it, I could sleep through it.
Oh, I was so used to that sound. I
Mhm.
actually love that sound.
Yeah,
Honestly,
and then when
I
I moved
find it
here when I
comforting.
moved here, it was so quiet, and I'm like, "How do I sleep?" Like, there is no train, there is no traffic, you know what I mean? Because I was so used to those sounds falling asleep to. It was so eerie in the beginning. Now, I think I can't sleep if it's not quiet.
Oh, I can't sleep if it's quiet.
Yeah, I needed quiet,
And,
peace
like,
and quiet.
in the old neighborhood because it was in a cul-de-sac in the development. Yeah, it was super quiet. Like, there's nobody driving in the
Mhm,
middle of the night unless they're coming home from, like, a vacation. No one's blasting their music, no one's speeding. The only people who belong there were the people who lived there or were visiting, or if you were getting a delivery. That was it. One way in, one way out. And it was quiet, but I sleep with rain, so but
mhm,
yeah, it's different. And then here it's different because we're on a emergency route, so it ain't
mm.
quiet here.
Yeah, I had the fire station up the street from me. I had the train across the street from me. I had 2 busy roads crossing each other. I mean, it was just constant noise.
Yeah, so funny. That's city life.
Mhm,
Yeah, people who have, like, suburban or country life, they move to the city, it's a shell shock. I
mhm.
think it's also shell shock, though, when you move to somewhere that's
Yeah.
super noisy and it becomes super quiet because it's,
Yeah,
like,
that's how I was. I'm just like, "This is so
weird.
eerie."
Yeah, I need some noise.
And now some once in a while, I can hear the train from, like, far away, and I can hear it, and I'll be like, "Why the hell can I hear a train from here? I should not hear anything."
No, I love it. I love hearing that horn. I'm like, "Oh my god, it's so comforting." Let's pull a card for the week ahead, a glimpse into what's stirring just beneath the surface, beyond the shadows. This week's card is the Magician Upright. Upright, the Magician represents manifestation, resourcefulness, power, inspired action. As a master manifester, the Magician brings you the tools, resources, and energy you need to make your dreams come true. Seriously, everything you need right now is at your fingertips. You have the spiritual, physical, mental, and emotional resources to manifest your desires. And when you combine them with the energy of the spiritual and earthly realms, you will become a manifestation powerhouse. The key is to bring these tools together synergistically so that the impact of what you create is greater than the separate parts. This is alchemy at its best. Now is the perfect time to move forward on the idea that you recently conceived. The seed of potential has sprouted, and you are being called to take action and bring your intention to fruition. The skills, knowledge, and capabilities you have gathered along your life path have led you to where you are now. And whether or not you know it, you are ready to turn your ideas into reality. And that's this week's card.
Now, what are these ideas that need to manifest?
I don't know, maybe it's ideas for this podcast or life in general.
Yeah.
Like me taking my ass to the damn gym and getting into shape, getting my she shed.
Yeah. And I gotta get that one room fixed up and make it my office upstairs. I just cleaned it out and took some of the stuff out. So now we gotta patch up the holes and repaint it and all that good stuff.
It also could be something that we're not even thinking of and it hasn't manifested yet.
Yeah, the idea hasn't manifested yet. And
Yeah,
then come during the week, something's gonna come up.
it's
And then you'll be
about
like, oh shit,
staying
that's what it is.
yeah, staying open-minded enough for it to present itself and then
Yeah.
accepting it.
Hmm. Another chapter closed, but the story never really ends. The dead don't always rest, and the truth doesn't always surface.
If you felt a chill in an empty room, heard your name whispered with no one there, or dreamt of a place you've never been, you're not alone.
The shadows are always watching. Sometimes they move, sometimes they follow, and sometimes they speak.
We'll be listening. Until next time, stay vigilant, stay awake, stay aware, and keep your eyes on the shadows, because not all shadows are harmless.
Bye.
Bye. I always laugh after that. That's my best friend. She a real bad bitch.
And I have that on my playlist.